Hey everybody, Jake here from Bearded Gear, and I'm excited about this one. This will be my full prototype review of the Divo Knives Stout. This is a knife that was designed by my good friend LeftyEDC in collaboration with his buddy Colin, aka CM Knife Designs. So Kevin and Colin came together and designed this, and this version was prototyped and is going to be produced by QSP Knives. So QSP is the OEM behind this. They're having this manufactured in China. They're doing a pre-order on April 9th. I'm going to say that right now because I'm sure even just 40 seconds in, there's going to be a bunch of people, when can I get one? How did you already get one? I got one already because I have a YouTube channel and I review knives. And so this prototype was sent to me for feedback and to share on my channel. The pre-order will be April 9th. That is when you can order one. I plan to order 2. Newsflash. That's what I'm going for. Why does my beard look like it's got like a spot on it right now? Anyway, we're just rolling with it. That's what my beard's doing today. So this knife is coming soon. When the pre-order happens, they can place their production order. I think from what Kevin was saying, if everything lines up, we're looking about August or September to get the knife delivered to you if you pre-order one on April 9th. So I hope that that answers the questions. QSP is manufacturing it, CPM 20CV, micarta, titanium. There will be another version that is the same, except instead of micarta, it will have a copper carbon fiber, which looks really cool. And then in each scale versions, this black micarta or that copper carbon fiber, there will also be a fully black washed version. So black washed blade and black washed titanium, everything. So 4 iterations technically, 2 different scale materials, 2 different finishes. That'll be what's coming on these. Okay, so I've had this knife for like 5 days. It was actually kind of funny. Kevin sent this to me. He sent them to me and Kyle, DTOM Knives and Gear, and to Chris, Grady's Gear at the same time. He sent one prototype to each of us. And I was out of town when he sent it. I was in Texas and I was sending Avance, quality controlling 350 units, 300 pre-order units and 50 that are for Blade Show Texas about to happen, and then shipping them all. And I was not going to be here at home to get the knife. So he sent the other 2 like priority, and he sent mine like 3-day or whatever so that it would be here the day I got back. Mine landed in 1 day, the other 2 took longer. That's just kind of the way it goes. If you're familiar with Kevin, I feel like that story is synonymous with how sometimes his life seems to go, and every time he ships me stuff, it just happens to come really fast. So yeah, I've had this knife for like 5 days. I've carried it quite a bit. It came at the tail end of me like doing my move here into this new place, and so I've carried it quite a bit and actually gotten to put it through some paces. I have been fairly gentle with this knife. I haven't just been cramming it through drywall or anything. Not that I'm cramming through drywall in this house we just moved into, but I haven't been abusing it. But I've had a lot of opportunities to use a knife over the last few days. So it's been good to kind of speed up my process at getting through things. And this has been welcome in my pocket. I've really, really enjoyed having it. So let's reiterate materials real quick one time, and then I'll just go through my ergos, carry, cutting, action, all of that stuff, and share some more comments about it. So CPM 20CV blade steel. It is hollow ground, just slightly. It's not a deep hollow, but it is hollow ground, which brings it down to a reasonably thin edge. It's not like thin behind the edge. We'll talk about that, but 20 CV blade. And then it's a bolster lock, so you'll see the titanium showing through up here. If I turn it this way, you'll see that same titanium piece does go through for the full scale on each side, and then we just have a scale overlaid kind of on top of it. Scale material on this guy is black micarta. It's finished really well. It's a good micarta that's not too slick, not overly fluffy either. It's got a good amount of grip to it. I like the way it's done. We're rocking a deep carry wire clip. That is my favorite clip in the game. I love wire clips, so I like that choice. Titanium backspacer. We do have a lock bar insert. You can see the hardware for it there. And then I don't know if you'll be able to see it in there, but we've got a hardened lock interface / over travel stop. I think it's also an over travel stop, is it? I actually don't know. I can't see if there's a spot where it is functioning as an over travel stop. I guess the scale is what's functioning as the over travel stop, because you can only come that far and then you run into the scale. Okay, that makes sense. No internal milling, although the titanium that's under the micarta is really thin, so I don't really know how well that would be accomplished anyways, even if they tried to do so. Price on these, between the two variations, I think one is like $265, the other's $275, or maybe it's $260, $270, or $270, $280. It's somewhere right in that ballpark. The carbon fiber one being slightly more expensive than the micarta, if I remember correctly. So these will be sub $300. And in these materials, I feel like that's pretty reasonable. Before I jump into the looks, carry, cutting, action, and all that kind of stuff, QSP for me was a little bit of an unknown for a knife in this range. I've handled quite a few QSPs, like the Finch knives that are built by QSP and are in different materials than this, and are coming in at a more budgety price point. Not totally budget, because most Finch knives are a little over $100, but they're not above 200, below 300 like this is. So I wasn't sure how I was gonna feel about this like build quality, right? And honestly, I'm really impressed with how QSP did on this knife. I'm so impressed that now I'm like, maybe I should talk to QSP about potentially doing some prototypes on some stuff, because yeah, it came out really, really good. I think if I were to pinpoint like a thing that isn't quite Reat level good, which it's kind of difficult to even identify because the action is phenomenal. We're going to talk about that. The finishing is really, really good. I guess the most notable thing that I would say QSP didn't quite do as well as I'd say Reat typically does is the depth of the hollow grind. And I'm not positive that that's because it's QSP's limitation. Maybe in their design, they just didn't want it to be that deep of a hollow grind. I prefer a deeper hollow grind because I like really thin behind the edge. That's just my preference. That said, I've cut for miles with this knife already, and it's done really, really well. So it's not like it's too thick to function, but I just like a good deep hollow grind with a thin profile. And this one is a pretty shallow hollow. It's not an aggressive curve. It's just kind of a gradual little bit of a ramp. So yeah, other than that, honestly, like in the action department, the detent, the fit and finish, the transitions between materials, it is really well done. Maybe there's a chance QSP puts a lot of extra effort into the prototype and then production won't be quite as nice as this, but I doubt it. The point of a prototype is to show you what they can do in production. So yeah, I'm floored with how well QSP did on this knife. Okay, so let's start with ergos. We got options here, which I like, and all the options are neutral enough that they're comfortable for probably anybody's hands. My medium glove, but fill them out real well hands, go great back here behind the forward choil. I can get a nice grip on it. I'm loving that there's no jimping anywhere on this knife. Everything feels locked in enough, but smooth, and it's not gritty, and it's not trying to cut my hand with jimping anywhere. It's just smooth and feels nice in hand. The thickness of the handle is a little on the thicker end because we've got this kind of stacked construction, but it feels like a welcome thickness in hand, honestly. It indexes well, feels great. Even better for me is coming up here into the forward choil. I love that. This knife feels super comfortable, choked up into the choil, gets you right up onto that edge in a way that's comfortable but doesn't feel dangerous. And then you can also reach up into this kind of harpoon, this blade shape. I think Lefty said this, and I had been thinking it before I heard him say it, so I'm mad that he said it, but they were trying to define on one of his On the Edge episodes what they would call this blade shape. It's kind of like a sheep's foot with a harpoon or a Warncliffe, or didn't know what to call it. I think sheep's poon should be the given name because it's a sheep's foot with a harpoon. So I'm calling it the sheep's poon. This harpoon little spot up here feels great to put your thumb into when choked up into the choil, at least for my hand. That's like where I love to land on this knife. You can also come a little more aggressively back here if you're trying to extend reach, and even more, you can come back here. You could come back here if you were doing some chopping as well. So just a really nice neutral handle that's got several different places to put it. Even where the lock bar cut isn't aggressively pointy or anything, so I'm not finding any hot spots. The clip doesn't bug my hand one bit because it's a wire clip, so it's smooth and soft. In a draw cut, it feels really, really comfortable, especially back here. I guess if you tried to come up here, you'd kind of feel that point a little bit, but even that isn't like uncomfortable. So you can pull through things in that way. Reverse grip, super comfortable. Reverse grip draw cut, super comfortable. It's neutral enough, especially in this section, that every grip is going to be comfortable, and I like that. It's going to fit everyone's hands. It's not going to be too isolating. So that's well done. Let's talk action next, because I feel like that's kind of the shining star of this knife in a lot of ways. So for deployment, you've got just one method. You've got the hole, and I'm not going to complain about that because it's my favorite deployment method. It is designed to middle finger flick. That's what this hole is perfect for, and it does its job incredibly well. It just middle finger flicks like nobody's business. The detent is wonderful for it. Of course, if you know Kevin, LeftyEDC, he is the detent diva, so it better be. But it's just really well done. It middle finger flicks with authority. And then on closure, it's drop shutty. It's kind of a stout blade, pun intended. And I think that weight is doing it a lot of favors, but also these bearings are just great. For factory bearings, that is a money action. It's really, really good. Can it thumb flick? I think I've gotten it to a few times. Yeah, it'll thumb flick. You kind of, because of the shape of this hole and where it's running into this section of the knife, you got to kind of push a little bit like outwards instead of straight up. But it works. So if you want to thumb flick it, you can. I want to middle finger flick it. When I have some of these of my own, I can't imagine there will be many times I'll be thumb flicking it, because this is just so perfect. Awesome, awesome deployment method. Yeah, action is great. The detent is also strong enough that it doesn't just flip right out. It's great. All right, let's talk carry. So I think I already mentioned it's a little bit on the robust side thickness wise. It's not like a stupid thick knife. It doesn't feel weirdly thick, but it doesn't feel thin either. It feels a little bit chunky. That said, everything is very smooth. And this pocket clip is doing it a lot of favors by being a deep carry wire clip. That's just going to make me very happy, because I love the way that wire clips function. The way that they carry is my favorite. If you're carrying a wire clip and you bump into your car or a steering wheel or a ledge or your countertop, it just doesn't like have the same negative effect that a milled titanium clip does in those circumstances, or even a bent titanium clip or a bent steel clip. They just have edges and they're snaggier. This has no snaggy edges anywhere, and it's so functional because it also holds the knife in your pocket perfectly well. It's just such a great, like, it's, in my opinion, the perfect pocket clip for actual use and carry based on my preferences. Is it the prettiest clip? Does it look as good as a really ornate milled titanium clip? No. It looks incredibly simple. But for me, that's also part of the draw of it, right? Is if I'm carrying a knife that has a clip like this, and I'm in a place here in Southern California where some people are skittish about knives, which is an unfortunate reality, but happens, I'd rather not have to have the conversation about why I have a knife in my pocket more than I have to. I'd like to control when people know that there's a knife in my pocket. And so a clip like this to a non-knife person could be a clip to just about anything. So I like that about it. Anyway, it carries well. It's not super light, but it's not an overly heavy knife either. I don't know what the weight is on a scale on this knife, but it feels like a little on the heavy side without being heavier than I would worry about carrying. The thickness, a little bit thick for me, but I just prefer really thin knives in pocket. That said, every time I've had it in pocket, it hasn't been one of those knives that I'm constantly noticing or I'm constantly feeling kind of getting in the way, or when I need to get to my wallet next to it that I'm having a problem. It's just been very comfortable and usable. Speaking of which, reaching in your pocket past this knife is super easy, because this slope here and the way it's all filled in with the backspacer and how smooth everything is so easy to reach in past to get stuff. So the carry on it is really, really good. And that leaves us with cutting. Like I mentioned already, this grind isn't exceptionally thin. It's not trying to be exceptionally thin. And I've talked to Kevin about this, and he even said, he's like, if people want a super thin slicey knife, they can get an Avant. If they want something a little bit more robust and kind of meaty, then that's more what the Stout is. And I know Kevin and Colin plan to design more knives. Not every knife has to be ultra slicey and ultimately thin. Just like at Left Concepts, we may design a knife that's not crazy light and thin and slicey. Like, that might not be what we do every time. So this is perfectly functionally thin, I would say. I want to say Kev said it was like 18 thousandths behind the edge, and that's not thick. I guess where my brain is thinking it's a little thick is because it is a hollow grind. Usually I feel like I see deeper hollows. But this is about the same thickness behind the edge as a lot of like PM2s are. So it's not thick behind the edge. It's just thicker than many hollow ground knives that I've handled. I still think the hollow grind was the right choice because it gives, I don't know, just the nature of how this knife cuts with the shallow hollow feels really good. As I've passed it through cardboard, it's sliced really, really well. The edge that came on it is really, really great. They did a great job sharpening this from factory at QSP. Able to shave nail and shave hair pretty easily. It's great. I like the way that it performs. The blade shape itself is just ultra usable for the way that I use knives. I love Warney's sheep's foot, these types of blade shapes, sheep's spoons, because I love it when the tip is oriented down here for tasks of cutting down through things like the top of a cardboard box, cutting the tape, stuff like that. You're just not having to articulate really far down to get the tip into something like you would if the tip is all the way up here. And so I love that. It's just a really easy tilt and pull, and you can slice through things really, really well. This harpoon spot gives you a great indexing point for cuts like that or like this. It works really, really well. And so yeah, the fact that the edge that came on it is great. The fact that it slices as well as it does, I've been nothing but happy with it. And this blade also, a lot of times on like Warney's or sheep's foots, you get a blade that feels really thin at the tip, and this doesn't. It's got a fairly robust tip on it, if you can see that. It's not overly thin. And so it's confidence inspiring in that way, that this blade shape and this blade profile and the blade stock thickness all come together to make it just feel really capable and confidence inspiring. It doesn't feel like a wafy, thin little thing that you're worried about breaking. It feels like kind of a workhorse. So I like that about it a lot. Yeah, I mean, I guess the only other category to really talk about would be looks, which I don't always talk about. I feel like it inherently kind of comes out even if I don't identify it. But I think this knife looks really cool. I don't think it's like the coolest looking knife I've ever seen. It's not like, wow, that's the most eye-catching and interesting knife ever. But for how functional it is and how neutral the handle is and how like designed for actual use this knife feels like it is to me, I think it looks really good. I think it can look a little bit bird-like up here. I've heard a couple people say it looks like a dodo bird, and then it's hard to unsee. Sorry that I just put that in all of your heads as well. But it doesn't bother me that it looks like that. It's just, I like the whole shape. I think the harpoon adds some flair to the blade and the swedge. I think the bolster looks really classy. I think also the other variations of the knife add some flair to it. Maybe that's where I should stop. But let me just say, I think it looks pretty good. So where I want to kind of end with this is Kevin is one of my best friends in the knife world, right? And he's half of the design team behind this knife. And so it would be totally fair for you to assume on your end of the screen that I'm completely biased, and you shouldn't even trust what I say about this knife because he's a buddy of mine. So why would I say anything negative about it? Because I want him to succeed. There's also this part of the relationship with Kevin where we are both not only very honest with each other, but we like jabbing each other. And so it would be very fun for me to talk about things that I would change about this knife. And I'll mention one. There's one thing that I think could be enhanced about this knife. And it's a simple thing that they may totally disagree with, but if I were to like put in one little tidbit, I think would be really cool. On the bolsters up here, where it transitions to the blade, it feels like quite a ridge to me. And a lot of knives have a lot of a ridge there. But I feel like the fact that this is a thick titanium bolster up here would be a really good spot to like scallop this in a pretty deep way, almost like a slant downwards and in toward the blade. And that would make this transition look more fluid, and it would make pinching up onto the knife even more comfortable than it is. I think that would be cool. But that's a weird like design choice tidbit. That's not anything about like the functionality of this knife. And I think they crushed it with this design. I think honestly, the best way I can phrase it is if Kevin wasn't my friend, or if it wasn't Kevin at all who designed this knife, if this was Colin, who I don't personally know that well, and just Colin, or if it was Colin and someone who's not Kevin that I don't know who designed this knife, and I was checking out this prototype right now, I would plan on ordering one of them. And I would probably get the copper carbon fiber because I think that material looks really, really cool, but it would be a toss-up because I love micarta on a user, and this definitely feels like a user knife to me. Anyways, I'd order one. But because Kevin is one of my best friends and I want him to succeed and I care about the success of his project, I plan to order two. I think that's the best way I can organize my thoughts about it. Like, if I looked at this knife completely, as objectively as I possibly can in my mental space, it would be impossible for me to remove all memories of Kevin. But if I tried to, that would be a great world. If I tried to remove all memories of Kevin and erase him from my mind, I'd probably want just one of these, and I'd just be deciding between the variations. Instead, I'm going to get one in micarta, and I'm going to get one in carbon fiber. I don't know, maybe I'll get one that's black washed, one that's satin. I'm not sure yet, even getting two, which two I'll pick. But I plan to get two, because I like him, and he's a buddy. So I think that's the best way I can kind of like put my money where my mouth is, right? Like, that's the best way I can think to describe how I feel about this knife being his, and then also balancing it with how I actually feel about the knife on its own. It's good enough that I would buy one, even if Kevin wasn't involved. And so since he is involved, I'll buy two. I think that's about as concise as I can keep it for now. This is a prototype, so it is moving right along, going to the next person who's going to check it out. I believe Knives Knives is getting it after me, so you can see this one on his channel. If you want to see some of the other variations, Grady's Gear, Chris has one, and his video, at least one video is up already. Another one may be very soon. And Kyle, DTOM Knives and Gear, has done videos as well. And then they're going to be going around. I think KC Knives Fast is getting one. Yeah, they're going all over the place. So you'll see them quite a bit, these prototypes, that is, before the pre-order happens on April 9th. But that is when the pre-order is happening. So if you comment down below asking me when the pre-order is happening, I probably won't respond to you and say, maybe someone else will be nice and will do it, but I've said it several times here in the video. So that's on you, bub. Yeah, this is cool. I'll get two. I really like it. I'm impressed. I'm proud of Kevin and Colin, who I don't know as well, but Kevin is my buddy, and I'm proud of him. It's been really fun to see Kevin going through this process, especially because now that I've been also through this process, I know how much it actually is. I think there's this view sometimes that to design a knife and have an OEM build it is a pretty easy process. And some parts of the process might be easy for some people, but I can almost guarantee that the entire process will end up being very taxing for anybody who tries it. There is a lot of curveballs and a lot to figure out, and it's not just drawing a knife on a piece of paper and sending it to an OEM and then, oh, look, we have it, it's real. There's so much more that goes into actually making the design functional, and then picking an OEM and getting them to be able to produce it based on your idea the way you actually want it, and then creating a business around it to have the vessel through which to offer the knife for sale, to build a website, to create an LLC or an incorporation, or whatever it is. Like, you have to make a business, you have to worry about taxes. There is so much more than just drawing a knife on a napkin and sending it to somebody. First of all, I don't think any OEMs at this point, with how competitive it's become, would even care to take on business where someone just sent them a paper drawing and said, let's make this. So anyway, congrats to Kevin and Colin for getting to this point. I know firsthand how exciting it is to get a functional prototype of something you designed and then to bring it to market. But I also know how difficult it is. So kudos to them. And yeah, I'll link down below to Divo Knives on Instagram. I'll link to their website. I'll link to Kevin and Colin's Instagrams as well. So you can find all the information about them there. I've posted about this on my Instagram as well. But check them out, give them a follow, and be ready for April 9th. Let's just blow them away and order a whole bunch of them and make them very happy. Awesome. All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you. See you on the next one.